The Quantum Ultimatum. Commander Sarah Chen stood before the holographic display in humanity's Deep Space Command, watching as the quantum signatures of 1,000 hegemony warships appeared at the edge of Sol's defensive perimeter. 20 years of careful preparation had led to this moment. While the hegemony thought they had found a primitive species to subjugate, humanity had been quietly preparing a response that would shake the foundations of galactic power. "Final status check on Project Nightfall," she ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of what was to come. Dr. Marcus Rivera, chief scientist of the Quantum Weapons Division, nodded from his station. The quantum disruptors, hidden throughout hegemony space over the past decade, were ready. Each device could alter the fundamental forces within a star system, rendering all advanced technology useless without harming organic life. The hegemony had never bothered to learn about humanity's true capabilities. Their first contact protocols had consisted of demands for submission and threats of annihilation. They saw Earth as nothing more than another primitive world to add to their collection of 10,000 subjugated species. Their arrogance would be their undoing. Signal from the hegemony flagship, Lieutenant Puttle reported. "They're demanding our immediate surrender and integration into their empire." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Send them our response." The message was brief but would change the course of galactic history. To the Hegemony Council, "We have spent 20 years preparing for this moment. Hidden throughout your empire are quantum disruption devices capable of shutting down all advanced technology within a star system. You thought us primitive. You never bothered to learn that Earth's quantum physics research surpassed yours centuries ago. Withdraw your forces immediately, or we will demonstrate our capabilities on an uninhabited system of your empire. You have 1 hour to comply." The response was predictable: threats, posturing, and dismissal of humanity's claims. Sarah had expected nothing less from a civilization that had grown fat and complacent on easy conquests. "Target the Proxima Centauri testing grounds," she ordered as the deadline approached. "Minimum power, controlled demonstration." Dr. Rivera's hands moved across his console, initiating the quantum cascade. In the designated system, carefully placed devices began to alter the fundamental forces that made advanced technology possible. Shield generators failed. Weapons systems went dark. Communication networks dissolved into static. "Demonstration complete," Rivera reported. "All hegemony technology in the target system has been neutralized. Organic life and basic infrastructure unaffected." Sarah opened a channel to the hegemony fleet. "That was one system at minimum power. We have devices planted throughout your empire, capable of far more devastating effects. The next demonstration will not be on an uninhabited system. You have 30 minutes to begin withdrawal from all human space." The hegemony's response was chaos. Some ships immediately jumped to hyperspace. Others maintained position, weapons armed but useless against an enemy they couldn't engage conventionally. On the command deck of the hegemony flagship, High Commander Vexthor watched in horror as reports flooded in from the demonstrated system. Everything their civilization had built was vulnerable to these supposedly primitive humans. In the following hours, the balance of power that had defined the galaxy for millennia began to shift. Humanity had revealed itself not as another conquest, but as a force that had carefully prepared for this moment. The hegemony would soon learn that underestimating humanity had been their greatest mistake. As the hegemony fleet began its withdrawal, Sarah thought of all the sacrifices that had led to this moment. The secret research programs, the covert operations to plant the devices, the agents who had given their lives to make this possible. Humanity had chosen a path of quiet preparation over direct confrontation, and that patience had paid off. "Send word to our allies in the outer systems," she ordered. "It's time for Phase 2. The quantum ultimatum had been delivered. Now the real work of reshaping the galaxy would begin." Silent strike. The hegemony's central command buzzed with frantic activity as reports flooded in from across their territory. High Commander Vexthor's facial scales had turned a pale gray, a sign of extreme stress in his species. The humans' demonstration had been more than a simple show of force. It was a revelation of their complete infiltration of hegemony space. "Impossible," muttered Science Director Krelix, his 12 fingers dancing across holographic displays. "Their quantum manipulation technology exceeds our theoretical models by centuries. We dismissed their research as primitive approximations. The humans' network of quantum disruptors had been hidden in plain sight, disguised as standard navigation beacons that the hegemony themselves had approved for installation. The deception was elegant in its simplicity. While the Empire had focused on searching for traditional weapons, humanity had ceded their territory with devices that could unravel the fabric of their technological civilization. Back on Earth, Commander Chen was coordinating the next phase. "Status of the secondary targets?" she asked, studying the strategic display where red dots indicated hegemony military installations. "Quantum signatures aligned," Dr. Rivera confirmed. "We can disable their primary shipyards and weapons facilities simultaneously. The targeting algorithms are ready." The hegemony had built their empire on technological superiority, crushing resistance through overwhelming force. Now that same technology had become their greatest vulnerability. Their ships, weapons, and defense systems all relied on principles that humanity's quantum disruptors could neutralize. "Message from the Hegemony Council," Lieutenant Patil announced. "They're requesting negotiations." Sarah allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The mighty hegemony, who had refused all previous attempts at diplomatic contact, were finally ready to talk. But she knew better than to trust their sudden change of heart. "Launch the secondary strike," she ordered. "Let's ensure they understand the full scope of their situation." Across hegemony space, their most crucial military installations went dark. Shield generators failed, weapon systems crashed, and communication networks dissolved into chaos. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries found itself suddenly vulnerable. But humanity's true masterstroke was yet to be revealed. As the hegemony's military command structure crumbled, encrypted channels across their territory activated. Resistance movements on 100 subjugated worlds, secretly armed and trained by human operatives, rose up against their weakened oppressors. The hegemony's carefully maintained image of invincibility shattered. Species that had lived under their boot for generations seized the opportunity for freedom. The Empire's own bureaucracy, paralyzed by the loss of their technology, could no longer maintain control. "Phase 2 complete," Rivera reported. 87% of targeted installations neutralized. Resistance forces are reporting successful uprisings on 64 worlds. Sarah opened a channel to the Hegemony Council. "Your empire was built on the subjugation of others through technological superiority. We have removed that advantage. The people you enslaved are now free to choose their own path. You can adapt to this new reality, or you can watch your empire dissolve system by system." In the Hegemony Council chamber, the reality of their situation was finally sinking in. Their mighty fleets were useless, their advanced weapons were worthless, and their carefully constructed hierarchy of power was collapsing. The humans, Vex Thor realized with growing horror, they didn't just develop a weapon. They orchestrated a complete dismantling of our civilization. While we watched their visible military buildup, they were laying the groundwork for our destruction. The hegemony had failed to understand a fundamental truth about humanity. Their greatest strength wasn't their technology, but their ability to unite others against tyranny. The quantum disruptors were merely the key that unlocked the cage. The real power lay in the alliance they had built with the oppressed species of the galaxy. As reports of more uprisings flooded in, Sarah thought of all the covert operatives who had made this possible. For years, they had worked in the shadows, building networks, training resistance fighters, and preparing for this moment. The hegemony was learning too late that they had never truly been fighting just humanity. They had been fighting the very empire they had built through fear and dominance. The silent strike had begun. The galaxy would never be the same. Empire in chaos. The hegemony's capital world of Primaris had descended into unprecedented turmoil. In the Grand Council chamber, Once powerful governors fought like cornered animals as their authority crumbled. The quantum disruption had revealed the fragility of their power structure, built entirely on technological superiority. First Speaker Maldeth faced the assembled council, his ceremonial robes now seeming absurdly ornate in the emergency lighting. The quantum disruption had forced them to rely on primitive power systems, a humiliation that cut deeper than any military defeat. "Our outer territories are in open revolt," he announced, his voice carrying none of its usual authority. 47 sector governors have declared independence. The human quantum weapon has made our control systems useless. Meanwhile, aboard the Earth Defense Command Station, Commander Chen received reports from across hegemony space. The carefully planted seeds of rebellion were blooming into a full-scale revolution. Species that had suffered under hegemony rule for generations were rising up, using the technical knowledge secretly provided by human operatives. The Arcturian resistance has seized control of their planetary defense grid, Lieutenant Puddle reported. The Centaurians have declared independence. The Vega Alliance is requesting formal recognition from Earth. Sarah studied the strategic display, watching as the hegemony's territory fragmented into increasingly smaller portions. Their careful planning had transformed a simple military victory into a complete restructuring of galactic power. Dr. Rivera approached with new data. The quantum disruption is having an unexpected effect on their social structure. Without their technology to enforce hierarchies, centuries of artificial social barriers are collapsing. On Primaris, the truth of this observation was playing out dramatically. The lowercase species, long kept subservient through technological controls, had found their voice. The hegemony's carefully maintained illusion of natural superiority had shattered along with their power grid. In the underground levels of the capital, resistance leader Catal, a member of the supposedly primitive Dorjan species, coordinated with human advisors. "Your strategy was brilliant," he told his human counterpart, Agent Maya Puddle. "You didn't just disable their weapons, you disabled their entire system of control." Maya nodded, remembering the years of preparation that had led to this moment. The hegemony built their empire on the assumption that technological superiority equals the right to rule. We simply proved that assumption wrong. Above them, in the towers of power, the Hegemony Council faced its greatest crisis. Their options were rapidly disappearing as more systems declared independence. The few loyalist fleets still operating on backup systems were overwhelmed by the coordinated rebellion. "We should have seen this coming," Science Director Krelix muttered, reviewing historical data. "The humans never developed the technology we expected. No massive fleets, no planet-killing weapons. They developed exactly what they needed to dismantle our empire from within." Commander Chen's next message to the Hegemony Council was brief. "Your empire is falling because it was built on fear and suppression. The species you enslaved are choosing freedom. You can adapt to a new reality of cooperation and equality, or you can fade into history. The choice is yours." The response came not from the Council, but from dozens of newly liberated worlds. They sought alliance with Earth, recognizing that humanity had offered them not just freedom from the hegemony, but a new model of civilization based on cooperation rather than dominance. As the old order crumbled, Sarah reflected on the true victory. The quantum disruptors had been merely a tool. The real weapon had been the hope they had given to oppressed species across the galaxy. The hegemony had never understood that true power comes not from controlling others, but from inspiring them to stand together. The empire was in chaos, but from that chaos, a new galactic community was emerging. And this time, it would be built on very different principles than the ones that had sustained the hegemony's rule. The breaking point. The hegemony's last desperate gambit began with a suicide strike at Earth's Quantum Control Center. A fleet of ships, stripped of all advanced technology and running on primitive chemical engines, emerged from hyperspace on ballistic trajectories. Their crews had volunteered for what they believed would be the Empire's salvation. Commander Chen watched the crude vessels approach, respecting their bravery while preparing countermeasures. They think destroying our control center will deactivate the quantum disruptors, she observed. They don't understand that each device is autonomous now. The defending Earth fleet moved to intercept, but these kamikaze ships presented a unique challenge. Without advanced technology, they were immune to the quantum disruption that had become humanity's signature weapon. Their very primitiveness was their strength. Dr. Rivera's voice carried urgency as he reported from the quantum monitoring station. They've adapted faster than expected. These ships are running on technology barely more advanced than our first space missions. Crude, but effective. The battle that followed was unlike anything in modern galactic history. Earth's advanced ships faced an enemy that had deliberately regressed centuries in technology. Railguns and chemical explosives met quantum shields and energy weapons. It was a clash between two entirely different eras of warfare. But the hegemony's desperate attack revealed something they hadn't anticipated. Humanity hadn't relied solely on their quantum advantage. Years of preparing for exactly this scenario had resulted in defensive systems that could handle any level of technology. The battle turned when Earth's defensive grid activated its secondary protocols. Thousands of automated drones, themselves running on pre-quantum technology, swarmed the attacking fleet. The hegemony's sacrifice would be in vain. Meanwhile, across the former empire, the final phase of humanity's plan unfolded. The oppressed species they had secretly armed and trained weren't just fighting for independence. They were implementing a new form of interstellar governance, one built on mutual defense and cooperation. Sarah opened a channel to all Earth forces. Remember your training. We knew they would try this eventually. Execute Protocol Omega. The response was immediate and coordinated. Earth's fleet demonstrated that they could fight effectively at any technological level. The hegemony's suicide squadron found themselves outmaneuvered by forces that understood both advanced and primitive warfare. In the hegemony council chamber, now lit by chemical lamps, First Speaker Maldeth received the final reports. Their last gambit had failed. The humans had prepared for every contingency, including their enemies completely abandoning advanced technology. We thought their quantum weapon was their greatest achievement, he told the remaining council members. We were wrong. Their greatest achievement was building a coalition of every species we ever oppressed, and teaching them to fight at any technological level. The battle above Earth ended not with the destruction of the hegemony fleet, but with their surrender. Humanity showed mercy, rescuing the crews who had expected to die for their empire. It was a powerful message to the galaxy. The new order would be different from the old. Commander Chen received the surrender personally, meeting with the squadron leader in Earth's orbital station. The hegemony officer, expecting execution, instead found himself offered a place in the new Galactic Alliance. Your courage is admirable, Sarah told him, but you fought for an empire that never deserved such loyalty. We offer you something better, a chance to help build a galaxy where no species dominates another. The breaking point had revealed the true nature of humanity's victory. It wasn't their quantum technology, or their military strategy, or even their network of allies. It was their fundamental understanding that true power comes from uniting people toward a common good, not dominating them through fear. As the last hegemony ships were escorted to containment areas, Sarah prepared for the final phase of the transition. The galaxy was entering a new era, and humanity would help guide it, not as conquerors, but as architects of a better future. Dawn of a new era. 1 year after the hegemony's fall, representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered in Earth's orbital assembly chamber. The massive space station, constructed through collaborative effort, symbolized the new galactic order, one built on cooperation rather than conquest. Commander Chen, now serving as Earth's representative to the Galactic Assembly, stood at the central podium. Below her, species that had once been bitter enemies under hegemony rule now worked together, rebuilding their civilizations on their own terms. The quantum disruptors remained, transformed from weapons into tools of peace. They now powered a network of regulatory systems, ensuring that no civilization could use advanced technology to dominate others. It was an elegant solution. Technology regulated by technology, preserving balance across the galaxy. Dr. Rivera presented the final reports on the transformation of hegemony space. The quantum network is stable. We've established educational exchanges between former enemy worlds. Former hegemony scientists are now collaborating with teams from previously subjugated species. The most remarkable change was cultural. Without technological superiority to enforce artificial hierarchies, societies across the galaxy have been forced to rediscover their common ground. Ancient rivalries gave way to practical cooperation as species found they needed each other to thrive. Former hegemony worlds, stripped of their technological advantages, had adapted surprisingly well. Many had discovered that their obsession with technological supremacy had blinded them to other forms of advancement, cultural, philosophical, and social. Kittel, now representing the free Dorsian systems, addressed the assembly. The humans taught us that true civilization isn't measured by technological advancement, but by how we treat each other. The quantum disruption forced us to relearn this basic truth. The new Galactic Assembly operated on principles that would have been unthinkable under hegemony rule. Every species had equal representation. Technological advancement was shared openly. Conflicts were resolved through mediation rather than force. Sarah's final act as military commander was to transfer control of the quantum network to the Assembly's Joint Oversight Committee. Earth's role was to break the old system, she told the gathered representatives. Your role is to build something better in its place. The committee included members from both former hegemony worlds and previously subjugated species. Together, they would ensure that the network served its new purpose, preventing technological warfare while encouraging peaceful advancement. A year ago, the galaxy had been locked in an ancient pattern of dominance and submission. Now, it was transforming into something unprecedented, a true community of civilizations, each contributing their unique strengths to the whole. The former hegemony officer who had led the suicide mission now served as a bridge between old and new. His insights helped integrate former Empire worlds into the new order, showing others that change was possible. As the assembly concluded its first major session, Sarah looked out at the Earth shining below. Humanity had achieved something greater than military victory. They had catalyzed a fundamental shift in how civilizations interact, proving that unity and cooperation could triumph over domination and fear. The quantum ultimatum that had begun as a weapon had evolved into something far more powerful, a foundation for lasting peace. The galaxy was entering a new era, and for the first time in millennia, the future held promise rather than threat.